and freedom. Vive la France! Vive la liberté! You're watching the Wake Up America show, and I'm your host, Austin Peterson. French elections turn towards, well, what the left calls the far right. Everything is far right to them. Stunning results in European elections, which saw a sweep of left-wing and socialist parties for hard far-right parties that swept their, well, what they would consider to be midterm elections. We're going to talk about it this morning, analyze it as much as we can while we enjoy a nice Chateau de Briand et le fromage, which c'est le fromage en mon pantalon. Finally, those 4.5 years of French will start to pay off. Glad to have you here watching the Wake Up America show. We've got a lot to cover today. Joe Biden pooped his pants. Even if he didn't, it doesn't matter. It's still funny. I'm just laughing at the headlines and the fact checks that I'm reading from that video that we saw the other day of Joe Biden, where in reality, what is he doing, right? He's looking like he's going to sit down in a chair, but it's also the same kind of posture that infants make whenever they're pooping their diaper, right? I'm just laughing because the Daily Beast ran this headline. They ran this headline where it's like, the anatomy of the far right smear that Joe Biden pooped his pants. Even Nate Silver at 538, hard left guy, is out there saying Joe Biden should have never run and maybe he should step down. You love to see it. Vive la France! Vive la liberté! We're going to talk about that this morning, the anatomy of the right-wing smear, and we're looking for a chair, quote unquote, says the left-wing media. Exactly. We're going to talk about that this morning, and we're also going to analyze the European elections. Just an FYI, just because I speak a little French does not make me an expert on European elections. The parliamentary system is much different than our national parliament that we have here in the United States. So I'm going to do my best to try and give you the most accurate coverage, but there might be a chance that I could get something wrong. And if you are an expert in parliamentary democracies and I'm getting something wrong, you can tell me. Just send me a text right down there. 573-319-1586 is the text line, and you can text that number anytime, night or day. In fact, someone texted me this morning and said they're going to order some coffee from AP for Liberty Shop when they get stopped. Well, that's good. Thank you. Because if you order that coffee anytime within the 2 hours of the live show, that helps to unlock the bonus content, which you guys just eat up and you love. And if we raise at least $60 either in Rumble Rants or in purchases at apforlibertyshop.com, then you get to see today's mini documentary, which I think you will positively adore. Vive la France, vive la liberté, qui a coupé le fromage? Question mark? I'm not quite sure. Yeah, you guys got the rubber ducky shirt today because you gave me such hell yesterday for wearing a boring shirt. So there was no way that was going to happen. Austin shows up wearing a boring shirt.
How dare you?
All the Greta Thunbergs of the world. So again, you can text the show and let us know what's on your mind. If I get something right or wrong, 573-319-1586. The Libertarian Party of Colorado will not nominate their chosen presidential candidate for their ballot, meaning that the Libertarian Party of Colorado has decided not to place their own presidential candidate on their ballot in the state of Colorado. Excuse me, sir. What does it mean? We'll talk about that a little bit later on in this hour. And Camelia Peterson's going to join us at 8 o'clock. We'll have her take on that. And then I really want to hear from her on this story that I was reading. Something that kind of affects us all, because I imagine that the demographic of the Wake Up America show, it's like we skew a little younger, but we're not too young, right? I think there's probably it's mostly that 25 to like 55 demographic here, and maybe a little bit older on the Wake Up America show, which is good because that means you guys have money, and that's a good demographic to have. If you're too young or too old, then it's not good, right? Because you want to have that sweet spot where people are still working and able to do things like give Rumble Rants, like Quest Fanning just did when he donated $2 and says, "Sucker, he's blue, Mr. T, probably." Thank you, Quest. Austin, do you drive a Jeep Wrangler? No, do not drive a Jeep Wrangler, Bruce Burtwhistle, but I do like Jeeps, just not the Wranglers versions. Okay, afuera cabrones. Somebody just texted in this morning. What is that all about? I have no idea, but you can text us too, 573-319-1586. We're going to talk today about the Libertarian Party not putting their own candidate on the ballot and what that might mean for a Donald Trump v. Joe Biden v. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. election. So that should be interesting. And then Camellia is going to talk to us this morning. I read this story. Yes, sometimes I read the New York Times. Don't be mad. About the title was The Secret to Refreshing a Friendship. But more broadly, I'm just sort of interested in the challenges of making and having friends when you're an adult. And, Stephanie and I were, our baby shower is coming up this weekend and we're really excited about it. And it gets you to thinking about, friends and family. And if you live in a bigger city, it might be a little bit easier. But when you're rural, like Stephanie and I, we live in Jefferson City, Missouri, the challenge of making friends, meeting new people, especially when you're starting a family or if you have a family, are enormous. And so I thought this was an interesting conversation and something that impacts us all. Like, do you still have friends that you had from when you were in high school or in college or a little bit later? I had a phone conversation with a college friend last night, for example, just kind of catching up. And every once in a while we still see each other, right? But how do you, here's the thing. If you're going to have a child, you need a bit of a community. And if you don't live near your family, and Stephanie, the closest our family is about 2.5 hours away, is, raising a child, if you don't have a friend network, then it does get a little bit lonely. If you don't have a family nearby, how do you sort of like work out your schedules, right? You've got to have babysitters, which means bringing strangers in the home. So there's a lot of challenges to that. And I thought it would be an interesting conversation for Camellia. Finally, one that won't make her blush, but a good conversation nonetheless. We'll hear it from her at 8 o'clock this morning. At 8:30 a.m. Central Time, Professor Wilfred Riley is going to be joining us on the show. He's been on with us a couple of times before, and he wrote a book that is called Lies Your Liberal Teacher Told You, which I already love it. And his article caught my attention yesterday in the New York Post when it was published, titled, "The Hippies of the 60s Were Not All We're Led to Believe." He writes that American school books often employ romanticized language to describe the hippie era. Actually, I remember that from high school. A fairly typical passage from the textbook America Past and Present describes hippies as idealistic young activists who challenged the prevailing adult values in clothing, hairstyles, sexual conduct, work habits, and music. Comfortable trousers and strings of beads took the place of business suits and wristwatches. Long hair, bare feet, and bralessness for women became the new uniform.
No, God! No!
Yeah, we all think that like bralessness as guys, you when you hear something like that, you're always like, oh, sounds good. But when the actual bralessness happens, the type of people who do it tend to be the kind who are like, ugh, run away.
How dare you?
At the macro level, Wilfred writes, monogamous two-parent families and dull suburban subdivisions gave way to communes for the flower children of the 1960s. A major article ran in Gentleman's Quarterly a few years back titled, "The Hippies Were Right After All." And in the piece, the author writes, "The secret truth is that hippie culture won. You don't believe me? How many yoga studios come up in Google Maps when you open it?" So the idea is supposed to be is that the hippies constitute at least a sizable plurality of society. And it always conveys an undertone of sympathy for even the most extreme elements of the counterculture. His new book, Wilfred Riley's Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me, will be joining us this morning at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. Where else do you get great coverage like this and interviews like that? Huh? Are you getting good interviews and coverage like that? Are you getting international affairs, national affairs, stuff that just, gives you all that sweet red meat? Don't you just love the Wake Up America show? Do you? Do you? Well, how much do you like it, huh? Do you feel lucky, punk? Click that like button if you really like us. And if it's your first time here watching the Wake Up America show, we'd love it if we could earn your follow. So click that follow button. And if you're a regular, you should already know. You already know. I'm so handsome. Click that like button and help us to spread the ideas of economic freedom and personal liberty. All right. So before we hit the Euro elections and all that fun stuff, which is really great, let's talk about Joe Biden real quick, because we're always kind of trying to see what Commander in Chief is doing. The statistician, Nate Silver, kind of a center left guy, writes, it's more than fair to ask if Joe Biden should drop out amid his all-time low approval ratings. So the founder of 538, which is an elections blog, floated Joe Biden dropping out of the race as the best option for Democrats just 5 months before the 2024 election. Let's not forget that Cliff Maloney actually called it on this show, and he says he does not believe that Joe Biden will be the candidate. Now, Biden's approval ratings have hit all-time lows, even more low than they have been in recent days. So according to the 538 average of the recent polls, the president now has a 37.6% approval rating. That is a downward trend. The downward trend for Biden prompted Silver to post on X on Monday that the 81-year-old president dropping out of the race is worth discussing, even if at this point it would be a big risk for Democrats. Nate Silver writes, but there's some threshold below which continuing to run is a bigger risk. He added, are we there yet? He says, I don't know, but it's more than fair to ask. If I'd told you 10 years ago a president would seek re-election at 81, despite a supermajority of Americans having concerns about his age, and then we'd hit 8% inflation for 2 years, you wouldn't be surprised he was an underdog for re-election. You'd be surprised it was even close. Yeah, there have been presidents in American history who have served one term and then just decided that it was best not to run again, not just because of political scandal. Calvin Coolidge did that, for example. There have been precedents for people who are saying, he should only serve one term. Now, Silver's getting criticized for this take on this. Somebody tweeted at him or posted at him, I hate saying that Trump should drop out too, right? But Nate Silver even shot back at that and was like, that's a weird dunk for people who are pointing out Biden has big challenges because even though Nate Silver says, yeah, Trump should drop out, I agree, Biden would lose by 7 points, he says, but he thinks that the Republican Party in the country would be served by a different nominee, right? But Nate Silver is saying there that it's a weird dunk because Joe Biden obviously has bigger problems than Donald Trump. Don't believe me? Well, here, let's real quick. Oh, why didn't I do this before the show? I should have done this before the show. Chrome browser, Chrome audio. There it is. There it is. We switched to the new scene. Here we go. Bye-bye. And here I am up in the corner. Watch and listen.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Pause. What? This is a speech that Joe Biden gave in a Juneteenth celebration, which, it's not Juneteenth yet, but they decided to have a little early celebration. Here's Joe Biden giving a speech. I wonder why the approval ratings are so low, not just the double-digit inflation, but, I mean, isn't it normal to be concerned when you hear the quote-unquote leader of the free world, a title which I would give to Javier Milei at this point right now, when you hear the leader of your country, the president of the United States, talking like this?
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
That one's definitely going in the soundboard alongside this one.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to excuse me.
Yeah, and if you think that wasn't bad enough, here we see this video of Joe Biden at the Juneteenth parade. He must be just absolutely blitz bombed on Pervitin or some kind of methamphetamine or something to keep him awake. Look at this. Look at the life in his eyes. It says here, lights are on, but no one's home. Watch this video of President Biden. Tell me what's going on here in his brain. Watch this. Look at him. What's going on here? He doesn't know where he is. He has no idea what's going on. Song's catchy. He's just like pointing at it. Like he's reverted to what looks to be a childlike state. Right, where he has no idea kind of what's going on there. It's the look of a man who has either pooped his pants or is about to poop his pants. No! Wait a minute. Why did I say that? Far right smear, Daily Beast pooped. Because I saw this headline on the Daily Beast. It just made me laugh so much. Here it is. Anatomy of a smear campaign. Why Trump world said Biden pooped himself. It's just too funny. So you think, when you grow up, when you're a kid, you see the politicians or people in politics, you're like, oh, these are very serious people doing serious business. And then you become an adult and it's like, Joe Biden pooped his pants. And then the Democrats are like, no, he didn't poop his pants. And they're really mad about it. Deceptively edited footage of the president sitting down in front. He didn't sit down. There was no seat there for him to sit. That's fake news, fake news, fake news. Deceptively edited footage of the president sitting down in France spread rapidly online. It was childish, familiar from attacks on Trump, and a sign of a harsh political reality. Too funny. Well, let's see if we can find the video of Biden poop. Here it is. Here we go. Here's Joe Biden. Look here. How dare they? This is the smear campaign, the right wing smear. There's Macron. He's about we're getting ready to go to the elections, the France elections here soon. Which, god dang, man, you thought that Obama had an ugly wife. Look at this lady right over there, man. She looks like a marionette. She's marionette, isn't that a French word? Okay, here we go. Here's Biden. Here's the alleged pooping.
Distinguished guests.
Distinguished guests.
Lloyd J. Austin.
I mean, but he's obviously not there. And the Daily Beast writes, anatomy. And did you have to use the word smear campaign of all things? I mean, I thought that was, come on. Was that deliberate, right? Anatomy of a smear campaign. One more time. Here he is. The alleged pooping. Here he goes.
Distinguished guests, please welcome the Honorable Lloyd J. Austin.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
What did the president say there? There it is. If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad and thankful to have you here, everybody. Hey, how's it going? Am I not beautiful? Have I not earned your like? The Wake Up America show streams live Mondays through Fridays from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. So it's a 5-day, 2-hour tour de force of economic freedom and personal liberty. If you love freedom, you're in the right place. The Wake Up America show host, myself, and I, Austin Peterson. We love to make new friends and acquaintances. So if you click that follow button down there on the screen that you're watching us on, come back and join us every Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. We'd love to make your acquaintance. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586 is the text line. Would love to hear your thoughts on what's happening in world politics. Did Joe Biden actually poop his pants? Great question there. Love to hear your thoughts on that as well. Don't forget that the Wake Up America show does produce a 5-minute mini documentary for each show, and you can unlock the bonus documentary each day. How do you unlock it? Well, it's really simple. You can either make a donation through your platform that you're watching right now. So if you're watching us on rumble.com, you can get those Rumble rants in, and Rumble rants will help us to get to the $60 total. And if we hit $60 by the end of the show, then we will unlock the bonus documentary. And the fun thing about the bonus documentaries is that they take over the typical commercials that we might have for a break. Austin, why do you have commercials? Well, so that I can go to get a guest. So I've got 2 guests coming on in the 8 o'clock hour. about 30 minutes from now. And when we transition to those guests, I'll normally play a quick commercial break so I have some time behind the scenes to get some work done, get the person in on Zoom and put them up on the screen, make them look beautiful, and bring them on the show so that you can hear an exciting and up to the minute political interview. So if you'd prefer to watch a mini documentary about political concepts that change the world, then make those Rumble Rant donations now. Or what I highly recommend you do, because I know a lot of people are heartless capitalists, you can go to ap4libertyshop.com. And if you go to ap4libertyshop.com and make a purchase during the program, then you'll be able to, that will count towards the $60 unlock. People like Wokas, who just texted and says, you taking phone calls today? Courtney Conover guessed correctly when she said guests so that we can look at someone other than just you. Exactly. This shirt's a lot to look at for 2 full hours. Gwokas, would you like to call into the show? You certainly can, brother. Here's what I'm going to do for you. Send me a text first so that I know which one that you are, because as you could tell from last week's troll callers, I have to highly screen the calls because I don't have a producer here to screen calls. So text first, Gwokas, and then I will text you back and let you know that it's okay to call, and I will block out all other potential, callers that would try to call in, so I can zero in on yours. So send me a text at the number at the bottom of the screen, Gwokas, if you'd like to weigh in on what's going on in your mind. I will take a call from you, Gwokas, especially because you're such a big supporter and a friend, and we appreciate your input. Let's see where we're at so far with the live chat donations. Yep, we've raised $12 towards the $60 goal. And if we hit that $60 by the end of the show, either in, again, Rumble Rants or in purchases at ap4libertyshop.com, then then you'll get to see today's little mini documentary. GF Johnson says that he wanted to hear more about the bisexual studio lighting. Very funny. I don't want to bip nobody but me. I don't want to hit nobody but me. I don't want to. Before we get, I do want to try and get to that call before we get to the European parliamentary elections that occurred, because I don't want to throw off the mood of, or the I guess the flow of the Wake Up America show. So Gwokas, go ahead. If you want to get that call in, you're going to have to get it in now before I switch topics, in which case, once I switch topics, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to tap dance a little bit, Gwokas, to give you some time here and tell you the story that I read in the Hill this morning about Donald Trump questioning if the, quote, unusually beautiful Taylor Swift is, quote, legitimately liberal, or if it's just an act. What? Former President Trump is questioning whether Taylor Swift is, quote, legitimately liberal, or if it's just an act, wondering aloud about the, quote, shake it off superstars' political beliefs. I think she's beautiful, very beautiful, Trump replied when asking about Swift. What? Why are we talking about this? Yes. Yes, Donald Trump says that Taylor Swift is beautiful, but he thinks that she's very liberal. Maybe she probably doesn't like Trump. I love it when he talks about himself in the, is it first person or the third person? I think it's third person. Hold on one second. There he is. This should be Gwokas.
Call from
Paul Matthews.
To
Yes.
accept, press 1.
While pressing 1.
I'll be quick.
Oh, what's up, Paul?
Can you
How
hear
you doing,
me?
brother? We can hear you.
All right, I'll be quick. You don't want to hear my New England gravelly voice for too long.
What's
it's
up?
not attractive. 2 quick things. I want to add something to the discussion we had last week about your doing this all by yourself. I don't think everybody, I'm sure some people do, I was a business owner, realizes that you probably don't sleep.
Yeah.
And the other subject is this. It's a question to the audience. So now that it's obvious that the COVID vaccine is a sham, which we knew, of course, but we had to wait for the official decision. Significant members of our government lied to us, including an a majority, I don't know, majority, a large number of members of Congress. These people have to be removed. Voting is too slow. And I'm not condoning violence, but what option other than violence do we have to remove these people? That's it. If you want to answer in the chat, go ahead. And AP, get on with your show, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Squokas. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for the call, sir.
See ya.
There you go. That's Squokas. Let's give him a round of applause. I don't want to love nobody but you. I don't want to love nobody but you. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. Let's hit it up real quick. We did get, a humongous purchase at apforlibertyshop.com. Wow. That definitely put us over the top. Thank you very much, Andy. We appreciate you. It looks like you got yourself some more delicious Founding Flavors coffee. You are going to be stocked up today. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you, brother. Yeah, and when you buy multiple boxes, the savings add up. You get a bundle. You get a bundle savings, so that way you can, you basically just slashes the prices down there. So you got a good discount on that one. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you, brother. Now everybody gets to enjoy the mini documentary before we go to Camellia Peterson here in about 30 minutes. All right, so let's talk about what's happening in the elections overseas. I'm laughing so hard when I'm listening to the news in the last 48 hours. I saw the election had happened on Sunday, and I didn't want to respond to it yesterday because I needed to do some more time, some more homework, and spend some time to try and understand what was happening. But I'm just laughing so hard at the American mainstream media coverage of what happened in France and around the rest of Europe in these elections, because they can't not use the word far right or phrase far right. They have to say far right. Count how many times in this coverage that I'm going to play for you. We're going to do the mainstream media coverage first, then I'm going to get to the Steve Bannon response to what happened in Europe. We'll talk a little bit about who is Marine Le Pen. But just let's hear what the mainstream media here in the United States had to say about the election, specifically in France. Count how many times they say far right in these interviews. Watch this.
Well, in Europe, voters in 27 countries have elected more far-right members to the European Parliament. That body has limited power, but the vote is having a
I love the emphasis that she put on that. Can we just watch that one more time? Take a listen.
Well, in Europe, voters in 27 countries have elected more far-right members to the European Parliament. That body has limited power, but the vote is having a significant impact. The results have prompted French President Emmanuel Macron to call for a snap parliamentary election in his country after suffering a major defeat at the hands of Marine Le Pen's right-wing party. Our Ramy Inocencio.
She managed to call it right-wing without calling it far right. But look at the chyron. Or I'm sorry, the lower third here. You can see far right makes gains in European elections. They're panicking.
Explains.
J'ai décidé de vous redonner
le fromage à mon pantalon.
I give back to you the choice for the future of our parliament, said French President Emmanuel Macron, dissolving the Republic's legislature in a political earthquake. After France's far-right parties, for the first time, won more seats than the parties he supported in Europe-wide elections for the bloc's 720-seat parliament in Brussels. Macron's call for a snap election starting June 30th comes days after he and President Biden met to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
That was where Biden pooped his pants, you know? Here.
Distinguished guests, please welcome.
Distinguished guests, please welcome.
If Macron loses further support, that raises the chance Marine Le Pen's far-right National Party will gain, with talk of telegenic 28-year-old Jordan Bardella, president of France's National Rally Party, becoming premier, and Le Pen possibly becoming president in 2027.
Look at that handsome young white guy there about to become president. You could just tell on his face right there that he's right-wing right there. He does kind of have, like, if he had a beard, that would be like the quintessential Chad meme right there.
Voters in Germany Germany, Italy, Austria, and the Netherlands also sent more
Drummer Goy in from the top rope. He says that the far right in France is still left of center. So true. It's true. Conservatives in the UK are like pro-gun control, pro-climate change, et cetera, et cetera.
far-right candidates. Some in Germany campaign using Nazi
Wait, we almost missed. We almost missed it. Hold on. Here comes another far right there. Is somebody marking down how many times they say far right?
And the Netherlands also sent more far-right candidates. Some in Germany campaign using Nazi overtones to the European Parliament.
Wait. You can't just say something like that and not show it, CBS News. Hold on. Back that up just a second. Some use Nazi overtones. It's not even Nazi, the undertones, right? Where it would be kind of like, Heil Hitler, right? Like overtone would be like, Sieg Heil, right? That's an overtone. But like undertone is like, Heil myself, Heil to me. I'm the kraut that's out to change Germany, right? No, this is like, he said Nazi overtones, which is like, Sieg Heil, right? This is not undertone, this is overtone. And then they don't even back it up. What's the overtone? Like, where's the picture of like, burn the Jews or something like that?
Some in Germany campaign using Nazi overtones to the European Parliament.
Overtones.
They include
overtones, not undertones. Overtones. I'm the kraut that's out to change our history. Heil myself, Heil to me.
Candidates who campaigned against immigrants, against support for Ukraine, against climate change policies, and against...
Are you having fun? Why haven't you clicked that like button yet? Come on. Where else are you going to have this kind of fun and laugh like this in the mornings? Serious news with a rubber ducky shirt on.
Dependence on trade with China.
Thank you so much.
But despite the rightward shift, Europe's center is still holding.
There remains a majority in the center for a strong Europe.
In Paris, Macron warned that the rise of nationalists...
Don't be stupid, be a smarty. Come and join the Nazi party. Thank you, Luke Sacker. You got the producer's reference.
And demagogues.
And now it's springtime for Macron and Germany.
Is a danger to France, Europe, and the world. His gamble that this sudden election will shock French voters and keep them from shifting even further to the right.
Even further than the far right? How do you get farther than the far right? How can you get more Nazi than Nazi overtones? There's not even Nazi overtones. They're trying to prevent, they're saying that the countries have gone far right. And then they're trying to prevent it from even going farther right. How far? It's like, what's that part? What is it? Move your car is like, move your car. We can move over. We can't move over anymore. We can't move over. You literally can't move over anymore. Okay. It's a Nazi overtone. There isn't anything higher than a Nazi overtone. What? You shouldn't have gone so far in calling us far right. You should have just said right. And then you could say maybe far right beyond that. Right? I feel like Jerry Seinfeld here doing a bit. Look at how serious this asshole is. Look at this piece of human excrement here in the mainstream media. You can tell how much he despises the common man by the way he's looking to the camera. And look at the amount of concern on his face that he feels because of the Nazi overtones and the far right politicians that are whatever. You could tell right now that these assholes are concerned, deeply concerned.
Okay, so Rami is joining us now from London. I personally have
double dog Nazi overtones is even more Liberty Shindig. Yes, thank you. Yes. Springtime for Hitler and Germany.
I find this absolutely fascinating, Rami. So 4 days of voting, more than 400 million people eligible to vote, but I don't know how many people actually come out and vote for the parliamentary elections, for the EU parliamentary elections. But what is the European Parliament?
She's got resting far right face. You guys are cracking me up in the chat. Oh my God, I'm having so much fun here this morning.
It's going to be
hurts.
looking like over the next 5 years.
Right. Well, basically, European voters have pulled the Parliament, 720 seats, to the farthest right it's ever been, Henry. And we've got a graphic with the provisional results.
So we're still far right than we've ever seen, but they're going to go even farther right. Wait a minute. Listen to that. What was he saying? What was this smug jerk saying?
Parliament, 720 seats, to the farthest right it's ever been, Henry.
The farthest right it's ever been. It's a Nazi overtone. It's an Uber double dog overtone. It's the farthest right they've ever seen. From Rami Inocencio, not so innocent.
And we've got a graphic with the provisional results, so we're still waiting for more to come in. But let's go ahead and bring that up. We can take a look at that. I'll guide you through it. Generally, the parties on the left side of your screen, those are the reds and the green colors, those sides lost seats. These are parties that...
So the group of the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats got their butts kicked. You love to see it. The left... butt kicked. Greens got their butt kicked. You can see here. Wow, it's the farthest right they've ever seen. Let's see. Where's the rally party? Let's see. Where is the, let's see, non-attached member? So this is like nobody, no party here. Identity and Democracy Group, European Conservatives and Reformist Group, Christian Democrats, which is, again, leftists, right?
That are more socially liberal, more globally minded.
Socially liberal, right, over here. Yeah, the socialists are socially liberal, you think?
And that advocate for climate change policies. But as you go further to the right of the screen...
He almost said the truth, right? He says, which they advocate for climate change.
Then those lean center-right. There's a big blue block right about in the middle, the center-right there, and then more extreme right the further you go. These parties all...
More extreme right the further you go. Look, this is the farthest right that it's ever been. Here we have these right here. This is it. This is the farthest right that the parliament has ever been, the European Parliament. What a joke. And then these Christian Democrats, I mean, again, these are like far left liberals here in the United States, like your typical like Christian Democrats that you have here in the United States. But here you have European conservatives and reformists. So they're conservatives, right? It's not like they're Javier Milei, Afuera, anarcho-capitalist party here. Identity and Democracy Group. So they're still liking themselves in democracy. Newly elected members here, not affiliated even more. So this is the farthest right. Look at far right makes gains in European elections. Oh no, not the far right. Courtney Conover says, of course, they never think, what did I do to create this result coming from the people? Because it's never their fault. It's always the Nazi overturns.
Gain seats. And it's this... this spectrum that goes further on, this more extreme side that is causing people anxiety. This block includes...
Causing people anxiety, really? Yeah, let's see. Let's look at the anxiety here. Far left radicals rioting. Here's their anxiety. Here's how leftists remember the people who love democracy? This is what they do when democracy doesn't go their way. Here they are in the streets. In Paris. Rioting. Breaking windows, destroying property. This is democracy manifest. Here they are. They're in favor of democracy. They believe in liberalism. And breaking windows when elections don't go their way. Far left radicals. I like it. That's what we should call them. Far left radicals rioting in Paris. Hilarious. The temper tantrum crowd of toddlers. Courtney, I think you actually sent me that video, by the way, last night. Thank you for that.
She knows so long as she was denied, our freedom can never be secured.
Are we having fun here today on the show so far? Are we enjoying this? The Schadenfreude, yeah? If so, don't forget to click that like button. And if it's your first time here, you might want to hit that follow button as well so you can come back and join us. The show's scheduled Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Looks like, unfortunately, we're not going to have Wilford Riley today. He's going to be in meetings all morning. So I don't know what I'm going to do at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. You're just going to have to watch me dance, baby. Watch me dance. Watch me whip. Watch me nay-nay. We'll see what happens there. I'll figure it out later. But let's continue here our discussion about what happened in the European parliamentary elections on Sunday.
France's National Rally Party, Germany's AfD Party, and Italy's Brothers of Italy Party, and those have neo-fascist roots. So generally speaking, we can see that the gain to the blue...
I love how they say these things and they just absolutely do not back them up. This is CBS News in the United States. These are the people that you're supposed to be able to go for like the unbiased coverage. So far we've heard Nazi overtones, the farthest right that it's ever been, despite this being like a tiny, tiny group of people who managed to get, gains. It's the farthest right it's ever been. There's Nazi overtones, and what else did they say? Is it neo-Nazi, roots? Hold on. What did he say?
Those have neo-fascist roots. So
those have neo-fascist roots. Okay, so now it's not just neo-Nazi overtones, it's neo-fascist roots. So it's not just, and they don't, they just throw these terms out. They don't define them. They don't define what neo-fascist is, because listen, there is a difference between fascism and National Socialism. Do you know the difference between fascism and Nazism? Well, all Nazis are fascists, but not all fascists are Nazis, right? Venn diagram that for you, bitch. So what does that mean? Fascists are explicitly authoritarian, but not necessarily explicitly anti-Semitic. Mussolini was always like kind of uncomfortable with the idea of purging the Jews, but once they were their military situation was untenable and the Nazis had to take over the situation in Italy, then they had to start purging the Jews. But Nazis are authoritarian and anti-Semitic, so that's the difference. So they're saying neo-fascist overtones. So if they knew what the terms they were using, what he is saying there is that the people who founded these parties had a connection to fascism, but were not explicitly anti-Semitic. And then earlier, when they used the term neo-Nazi overtones, then they are specifically talking about people who are specifically fascistic and anti-Semitic. But do you think that they're using those terms with any concept of what they're saying? No, because they're not backing it up. Like if I were doing this report, if I was working for CBS News and I was going to say something like that, first of all, when I worked at Fox News, if I made a claim like that, if I wrote something like that for someone to read in a script, I had to freaking back that up. I had to back it up. I could not say something like that without it being backed up. If I'm going to make a claim like that in the mainstream media, especially, you have to roll tape. You have to go and find video or audio of somebody doing right, with like the party badge on right there, showing that, oh, like this is where the party came from. This is why they're neo-fascists. Look, they've got Il Duce pictures of Mussolini hanging up in their party headquarters, or they've got, Uncle Hitler mustaches up around everywhere. Everybody's got like the little, right, whatever that mustache was that they call. You would have to back that up. You couldn't say something like that when I worked in the mainstream media, but they just throw these terms out. One, not knowing what they mean or the difference between them, and without any supporting evidence whatsoever, and they just say it. And the left, who watches this, I'm not saying the bad words, I'm trying not to because I'm just really worked up right now, but like, this is my job, right? I work in the media. I'm not just some regular streamer, right? I've done mainstream media, I've done alternative media, I've worked in television, film, radio, all of it at the highest of heights. And I can tell you that this is editorial. This is not news. Okay. This is a hit piece by leftist activists in the United States who pose as journalists, who say things like this, who don't know the terms that they mean. And then the people out there, the left Democrats, the far left Democrats here in the United States, they watch this schlock and they think it's news. They hear those terms and then they just parrot them. They repeat them. They don't know what it means. They don't know they don't even know what they're saying. And they don't back it up with any supporting evidence whatsoever. That would not have flown when I was working at people call Fox News a propaganda outlet. I can't tell you how many times my producers, my executive producer, my bosses would fact check me. Now, I always was able to back it up what I said with facts. I wrote some pretty incendiary stuff when I worked at Fox, but I didn't say it if I couldn't back it up. And there was always somebody there to check me. Who is checking them? Who is checking them on this? Neo-Nazi overtones and neo-fascist elements of the party. I honestly would be interested to learn about that. Like, I want to know who were the people in these parties that had first of all, neo-fascist, define your term. Who were these people that had neo-fascist overtones?
These Brothers of Italy Party, and those have neo-fascist roots. So generally speaking, we can see that the gain to the blue and all the way to the right side of the spectrum here gaining, and the left wing, the more liberals, losing. And that is what's causing anxiety.
So, since
Amongst
I gather
everyone
that
in
the
our
general
newsroom.
feeling about the European Parliament is that it doesn't have a lot of teeth, a lot of strength. So I imagine only certain people are going to be kind of motivated to participate in this election. That being said, of the people who voted, what is driving this shift to the right?
Sure. Well, ultimately, European voters show that they're more concerned about what's directly and really negatively impacting them. Immigration, we know, is one of the biggest issues, and people finally got their vote to say, hey, we have had enough. And we can really draw a line from the rise of right-wing politics with the rise in the number of immigrants, both illegal as well as illegal, that have been coming into Europe.
Both illegal as well as illegal, you idiot.
Got their vote to say, hey, we have had enough. And we can really draw a line from the rise of right-wing politics with the rise in the number of immigrants, both illegal as well as illegal, that have been coming.
Both illegal as well as illegal. These are the people who are in charge of reporting the news to you. This is why you watch the Wake Up America show, right? Because like nobody on this show is going to use the term like neo-fascist or neo-Nazi overtones without explaining just what the hell you're talking about. And by the way, I do have a clip here of a gentleman. This is Andrew Neil. He's the head of the Spectator, which is kind of like the libertarian, like conservative newspaper of Europe. I'm a subscriber to it, especially because of the Douglas Murray coverage. But if you go back, here's somebody who did some journalism. Look, it's me, AP. Don't you love watching real news, not fake news? Real news, silly shirts. The Wake Up America show. Here's Andrew Neil. He's the president of the Spectator Foundation, and he's talking about the actual neo-Nazi roots that come out of the Marine Le Pen party in France. And he's talking about how those elements were purged. Marine Le Pen, who's the head of the party, actually purged those elements, one of them including her own father. Take a listen to this.
She has moved more to the mainstream. Bit by bit, she even got rid of her father from the party, who was pretty much a neo-Nazi. You know, was constantly being arrested for anti-Semitism and near Holocaust denial, in fact. And there were some Waffen SS characters in the early day of the National. I mean, don't forget, France was occupied by the Nazis. You know, French people were rounded up, tortured, and shot. It's not a great selling point of any link with the Nazis if you're trying to win an election in France. So, you know, and bit by bit, she has shed that. She has made the party more mainstream. Of course, it still has elements of the right, still not, you know, a mainstream center right party, but she may have done enough to mainstream it, to make it now respectable in many people's eyes outside the French political elite, which will.
Let me tell you something. I just did the job that CBS wouldn't do or couldn't do because of their bias. Now, what you just saw was me actually going in and correcting the record that CBS had set right there, right? This is why you watch the Wake Up America show. When you look at the show, if you don't know who I am, if you don't know what my background is, you would see lots of neon colors, lots of silly sound effects, and goofy shirts, and you would think, oh, well, this guy isn't very serious. But just remember that the Wake Up America show brings you not only cutting-edge journalism and lots of fun, but we're actually going to be bringing you real news. And I'm going to tell you, so there are a lot of times when I don't agree with what the right is doing, although I consider myself to be, you know, broadly a member of the right, a libertarian Republican here in the United States, which makes me far, far, far right in places like Europe. But if CBS News had just played that clip from the Spectator, they wouldn't do it because they wouldn't want to give any airtime to conservatives and libertarians who are actually reasonable, people like Douglas Murray and others in Europe, because they have an agenda and they're pushing their agenda. But you saw here the kind of journalism that CBS won't do, right? So stop watching the mainstream media. You should turn it off. You can get the clips like that from me, and then I will correct the record for you with my background as an award-winning broadcaster. Thank you very much. You also get the funny clips of Joe Biden pooping his pants as well. Are you enjoying the Wake Up America show? Good, I hope so. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open. at 573-319-1586. If you send us a text message, then I will read your text on air, especially if it's relevant to what's going on. My brother just sent me a picture. I'm going to try and pull it up on the screen here, of a map of the EU elections in France. The brown in this picture, I'm going to pull this up, is not what Joe Biden did in his pants in France the other day. Ha ha, hee hee, hoo hoo. This is actually, here we go, pull it up on the screen. Thank you, Justin, by the way. This is a map of the EU election results in France. The brown is what they are calling the far right, when it's really just normal people who are sick of their globalist BS. Amen. So this is Paris here. You can see that's where like the elite are. And that's where the votes went for the Macron party. But this is just a fascinating phenomenon. So what's the difference between like the European elections and the French elections? So the domestic elections, that's a completely separate matter from these elections. So don't forget, the European Union is all of the European countries that are members of the European Union. They all have these votes, and that's what this was last Sunday. It was for the EU. But French domestic elections have been called, and there is a vote for president that's coming up, I believe, later this year in France. So what happens with the votes in the EU elections could be a reflection of what might happen domestically. And the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, in response to what happened in the European elections on Sunday with these far-right parties, right? These right-wing parties, having such a sweeping victory, he is trying to avoid a vote of no confidence in him and his party. So he's called for an election on the 30th of this month. So a couple of weeks from now, we're going to see if there is if this is just a fluke or if right-wing parties are actually on the march in France. And so they'll have a domestic election, and then they will have a presidential election, I believe, later this year. So it will be exciting to see what happens. And certainly we wish the best for the people of France, and that they finally will eject these socialists who have run their country into the ground. It should not be a crime to be a patriotic Frenchman. It should not be a crime to be a patriotic British. I mean, congratulations to the British on Brexit. You know, at least they've decided to go their own way. Thank you for that picture, Justin Peterson. We appreciate you very much. I had more clips. I've got Douglas Murray as well talking. He actually gave us a discussion on the Spectator TV about the continent is turning right. It's a fantastic 14-minute conversation. We might have to go to it later, actually, because Wilfred Riley has had to cancel, unfortunately. So I might play this and react to it at 8:30 a.m. Douglas Murray is probably like the leading like right-wing intellectual who is driving the sort of free market conservative libertarian policies out there in Europe. And his discussion on what's happening with European elections and the European electorate turning right is just absolute must watch or must listen. So if we don't get to it at 8:30, I will drop the link to this so you can listen to it later if you like. However, I've got to go get Camelia Peterson because it's time for us to talk to CJ. We'll get her take on that, as well as this big story that the Libertarian Party of Colorado has announced that they will not be putting their presidential candidate on the ballot in Colorado. What does this mean for Joe Biden and Donald Trump and for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Well, we're going to hear from Camelia Peterson about that when we get back. You guys have unlocked the bonus content. Thank you to Quest Fanning. Thank you to Courtney Conover. Thank you to Andy Opperman. You've unlocked the bonus content. You get to enjoy a political concept that changed the world. We'll be back with more Camelia Peterson. We're going to have a lot more fun when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Whew. Wake Up America Show bonus content looks at political concepts that changed the world. Today, we look at one of the greatest legacies of the Reagan era, the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve illustrates how tax rates influence the total tax revenue collected by governments, sparking political debates. Economist Arthur Laffer introduced the Laffer curve in 1974, showing the relationship between tax rates and revenue. It's used to argue that lowering tax rates can boost total tax revenue. Laffer's analysis, a bell curve, suggests that neither 0% nor 100% tax rates generate maximum revenue.
It implies an optimal tax rate exists between these extremes. Laffer argued tax cuts have arithmetic and economic effects, immediate revenue reduction and longer-term economic stimulus by boosting taxpayer income and spending. The arithmetic effect directly reduces government revenue by the tax cut amount, while the economic effect creates a multiplier effect, increasing business activity and employment. A graph of the Laffer curve shows an optimal tax rate, T*, where tax revenue is maximized. Deviating from T* in either direction decreases revenue. The curve posits that higher tax rates don't always mean higher revenue. At 100% tax, workers lack incentive, reducing overall earnings and thus tax revenue. Laffer's theory suggests an ideal tax rate between 0% and 100%, but pinpointing this rate is contentious and varies by country and circumstances. In 1974, Laffer presented his theory to President Ford's staff, challenging the belief that higher tax rates always increase revenue, highlighting potential negative economic impacts. Laffer's ideas shaped Reaganomics in the 1980s, leading to significant tax cuts. Despite these cuts, federal tax revenue grew from $517 billion in 1980 to $909 billion in 1988. Under Reaganomics, marginal tax rates fell, boosting tax revenue, reducing inflation, and lowering unemployment, exemplifying Laffer's theory and practice. Tax policy debates persist, with Republicans favoring lower taxes for businesses and high earners to spur job creation, while Democrats advocate for wealth redistribution through higher taxes on the wealthy. Republicans and Democrats both aim for Laffer curve efficiency, but with differing approaches. Republicans seek minimal government interference, while Democrats emphasize government programs. Critics cite 4 issues with the Laffer curve: its simplistic single tax rate, variability in the ideal tax rate, assumption of tax cuts for the wealthy, and assumptions about individual and business behavior. The curve's simplicity overlooks tax system complexities and does not account for factors like economic conditions, tax loopholes, and underground economies affecting tax cut efficacy. Laffer's trickle-down economics theory, where tax cuts boost overall growth, was previously seen in policies from Presidents Hoover and Reagan, focusing on benefits for corporations and the wealthy. The Laffer curve lacks specific tax rates and revenue predictions, leaving policymakers to estimate effective rates, making it a contentious yet influential economic tool. Ultimately, the Laffer curve suggests that cutting tax rates can increase revenue, but assumes a single tax rate and predictable behavior, necessitating careful consideration in policymaking.
Vive la France! Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Thanks for sticking around. Vive la liberté. We're glad to have you here. I'm Austin Peterson. Hope you're enjoying the Wake Up America show today. If you are, click that like button right now. It's delicious. Tastes like le fromage à mon pantalon. And if you're enjoying the Wake Up America show and it's your first time watching us today, click that follow button as well. That way you'll be able to find us again tomorrow. I'm Austin Peterson. They call me AP for Liberty. And that's where I'm at rumble.com/AP for Liberty. Some of us might be listening in through X.com, where I'm also at AP for Liberty, or on Facebook at AP for Liberty. You know, you get the gist. At AP for Liberty everywhere you go. So make sure you come back and join us for the Wake Up America show, Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time, a 2-hour tour de force of economic freedom and personal liberty, and lots of fun, silly shirts, but serious coverage. Joining us now to talk a little bit about current events is the lovely Camelia Peterson. She's left the United States and gone to a place they call Minnesota. Camelia, how are you doing?
I am working on my Minnesota nice. And I just, like, you've been talking about France, and I think that we are just up the street from our options this morning. We have to decide for coffee and breakfast or whatever. There's actually a French pastry place just down the street from us. But then there's also a coffee shop that is described as the most Instagrammable coffee shop in the city. So decisions.
Okay, that'll be very tough. Well, we look
Yeah.
forward to your safe return back to the United States, and specifically Missouri, and we'll see you at the baby shower this weekend. But let's talk a little bit about the big news, Camelia. I sent this story to you just this morning, and I'm kind of getting your hot take on it. I know you didn't have time to really research too deeply into what the Libertarian Party of Colorado has announced in synchronicity with Montana to not place, they've chosen not to place their party's chosen presidential candidate on the ballot. What's your quick reaction to this?
I didn't realize that Montana had done that too, but Colorado doing this does not surprise me because remember, and I think it's great, remember that Colorado was the LP chapter that struck a deal with the Republicans there in the state that they would, as long as the Republican Party chose liberty-minded candidates that they could find some common ground on with, they would not run libertarian candidates in opposition to them because they've had such a hard time getting, anybody anywhere near conservative or libertarian elected there. So they have already shown themselves to be pragmatic in their strategy. And so that actually did not surprise me. And just in reading through it very quickly, it was a good statement. I thought it was really well said.
Yeah, Colorado has always been a bit curmudgeonly, as I would can attest. In 2016, when I ran, the Libertarian Party of Colorado actually disinvited me from their presidential debates. Yeah, because I refused to swear allegiance to the non-aggression principle. And so they declared that I was ineligible to appear in their presidential debates, which would actually turned out really well for me because I fundraised like crazy off of it. And then I crashed the debate and showed up anyway. And I will never forget, like right before I went up on stage, I was like, I'm going up there. Like, you're not going to stop me, right? Like, call the cops. I don't give a you know what I mean? So the guy who was putting the microphone on me before I got up on the stage was like, Austin, you're a real piece of shit. And I was just like, you know what? You know what? I was like, I actually have a lot of respect for you because a lot of people talk shit online, but you actually had the gall, the balls to come to my face and tell me that you think I'm a piece of shit. And we're still friends to this day. So, But the LP of Colorado, I guess it's because their delegation and the convention voted for none of the above for the majority. And they're really not happy with Chase Oliver's positions when it comes to the rights of children. Neither are you.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's been interesting to see the reactions from the different party members. And in Louisiana right now, where our friend Jamie Marie Pope is from, she has her husband she works more in the Libertarian Party, but her husband is actually more in the LP side of things. And they have a lot of friends that are in the LP in Louisiana who are on the same page as we are when it comes to this issue and Chase Oliver as a candidate. But the Libertarian Party in Louisiana, whoever's running their social media accounts, is putting out all of this stuff about, leaving decision rights up to the individual and parents, and that the state doesn't have a role. And they're talking about puberty blockers and hormone therapy for children. And so anyway, we're trying to put them on blast yesterday because I'm sorry, but if you're going to say that and you're going to what, are you okay with child abuse now? Because I think that we can say that. I think that we can call this child abuse because it does irreparable harm to children. And, I've seen some good arguments when you're trying to come at this from a libertarian perspective in terms of who do you punish when it comes to those kind of things. And I've seen the argument that this should be more directed at the medical field. And I wholeheartedly agree. I think that's really what's going to bring all of this to a screeching halt, and what has contributed greatly to it slowing down is that medical professionals are getting sued over people who have had those surgeries and have been transitioned when they were minors, and lo and behold, they reach adulthood and they have enormous regrets and terrible side effects from that. And it has ruined many aspects of their lives, and they can't do anything about it. So they have detransitioned the best that they can, but it is there's no way you can undo those things.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is that the conversation is starting to become about what is the necessary or proper role of government. in regards to interjecting itself between, let's say, a parent who wants to transition a child and wants the child to undergo that process. Chase Oliver has taken the anarchist position of saying that I do not believe that it is the government's job to prevent a parent from sterilizing their child if they desire. Now, he has stated, strangely enough, he does think that it is the proper role of government to prevent them from surgically transforming a child, but chemically transforming a child, there should be no government intervention. It's a slimy, slippery way to try and avoid dealing with the simple fact that he is a hypocrite when it comes to his position, where on one hand, oh, I'm an anarchist, and then on the other hand, oh, I'm a statist. It seems as if he's really just trying to promote his own left-wing woke agenda when it comes to transing the kids, does it not?
Well, and when you talk about parental rights and decision rights in this, what do you do in the cases where you have two parents who are split on this? You have one parent who vehemently is opposed, and the other parent who is hell-bent on transitioning that child, probably because, they're projecting onto their own child in a very, psychologically unhealthy way. But I mean, it's not been that long ago where this was an issue with California, where California was saying that one parent could make that decision for those permanent alterations to that child. And so, we were basically saying, the other parents are going to have to flee the state of California for asylum in other states to protect them from that parent who wanted to harm that child. And so, the state's role is to protect your life. That's the most basic role of the state, is to protect your life, because that is your first right. And so that it's a nice idea, head in the clouds idea that people are just going to kumbaya and get along and things are going to work out. But there will always be some form of government. And I know government's an evil word, and I get it. I hate the government, but there's it's basically the order you create to live together. And there has to be some of that to a certain extent, as small as possible, though.
Right, for sure. But I mean, my take has always been that, man, if the libertarians would just get tough when it comes to the rights of kids, and draw a firm red line and say adults can have black tar heroin if they so desire, provided they harm no one else. But children must be protected from predators, from drug dealers, from people who would do them harm, and that it is the necessary and proper role of a local government. Maybe it's not the federal government's job to do everything right, but a local government or a state government to suggest that we're going to mercilessly prosecute anyone who gives drugs to children, who harms children anyway, who violently assaults children, who tries to give them hormone blockers, who tries to put a tattoo on them, right, or permanently mark them or scar them in any way until they reach the age of reason, the age of attainment, whatever that might be on a state level. But if they did that and they said, but when it comes to adults, laissez-faire, the government is not our parent, the government should not be telling adults what to do with their lives, I feel like that would be such a powerful movement in the United States. But the libertarians just can't get their asses in gear on something like that. They dither, which makes people not trust them, and people like me not trust them, right? A self-identified small libertarian. I don't trust those people with power. I don't trust them I wouldn't trust them for dog catcher. I wouldn't trust them to rule anything, to be in charge of squat.
And this is why I think that it's actually really important that the country is seeing this sort of divide in the LP right now, because it is over. When it comes down to it, it is over this issue. It is over the protection of children. And I think that, conservatives and people who call them, themselves Republicans, who have this really negative view of the word libertarian and what does that mean, and the stigma that is attached to libertarians, they need to see that there are lots and lots of libertarians, people who identify as libertarians, big or small L, who don't go along with this leftist ideology that is what the party has become. And when the Libertarian Party likes to talk about Ron Paul, well, a party that does not protect children is not the party of Ron Paul.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, Ron Paul was, for government intervention in certain ways when he was in Congress. There were certain things that he voted for that were, might ostensibly call or consider big government. And I think, a lot of libertarians, because they love him so much, they look past a lot of those things, and rightfully so, because he was so good on so many other issues. But I think, unfortunately, the Libertarian Party is in a situation where they're at a crossroads right now. And in this election, they have to make decisions like what Colorado is doing and what Montana is doing. They're saying, we're drawing a red line here when it comes to the rights of kids. I actually think it's pretty admirable that they're doing that and making that stand. I guess the real question is, considering Colorado is not necessarily a swing state, and Montana, obviously, it's not like there's a lot of electoral votes at stake there necessarily. Does it really affect the outcome? I think, if it happens in a swing state, that's a completely separate matter there. So, I mean, do you think this has any impact at all whatsoever, or just a psychological impact?
I think it's more psychological, and maybe more affecting what the direction the party takes down the road, right? You're right, though. There are some swing states where if that's happening in a swing state, it could have some impact. But it's interesting to me. Remember, the NOTA vote at their convention was nearly 40%. I thought that was pretty impressive. And I almost wonder what the number of people there who did not like Chase Oliver's stances on this issue, but they felt like they had to vote. It was clear that he was going to get it at some point, when the further you went along. But they thought, rather than, when it came to that last vote, they thought that rather than have no candidate, that they had to have some candidate. So they voted for him anyway, even though they didn't like him. I just wonder what would have happened if all of those people who felt that way actually voted for NOTA. And I kind of wonder if NOTA wouldn't have won.
It's a good conversation that I'm having with our friend Camelia Peterson, who joins us live every Tuesday and Thursday. Even when she's out of town, she'll go and hide in a bathroom somewhere so that she can join us here on the Wake Up America show. If you're enjoying the show today, don't forget to click the like button and follow the channel. We'd be glad to have you as a regular guest. Not just on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 a.m. when Camelia joins us, but every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Stephanie and I are having, a little bit more serious conversations about, our situation when it comes to work and our family life, and, what we can accomplish when it comes to, babysitting, and, talking about how are we going to manage our time, because as you well know, you're the one who brought this up to me, actually, like maybe a month ago. Camelia, you're like, Austin, knowing how much you work, like you heard Gwilkas say earlier, like Austin, you don't sleep, like knowing what your schedule is to try and produce the show and all the content and stuff like that. Like, how are you going to do that still when you have a baby? Right. And we kind of look around in our situation where it's like, we have some friends in Jefferson City, but like they've got their own families and problems and things like that. The closest relatives we have are like 2.5 hours away. So we're a little nervous, honestly, about how we're going to manage our, like, this full-time, entrepreneurial effort of the show and content, and then be able to take care of the child and still meet our obligations to the audience. I wish we had more friends. It's not easy to make friends as an adult. You read that story that I shared with you yesterday. It wasn't exactly about making friends as an adult, but it's not easy, is it?
No, and what that article was talking about was it was more about how you sort of take casual acquaintances kind of to the next level, to true friendship. But it's in a series of articles about friendship in general as adults. And I'll never forget a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, that Felicity and I were sitting there, and she asked me out of the blue, she was like, "How do you make friends?" And I was just like, first of all, I was like, I was like, that's a really great question. And, I hated to tell her that it's like, it's not any easier for adults than kids. In fact, it's probably harder for adults than kids. Because kids are sometimes, it's not so much when you get into your teens. I think it starts to get harder then, but children are so much less inhibited And so they, they don't let their assumptions about what the other kids are thinking so much stop them, from just being themselves and, being the first to reach out to somebody. But it is difficult. And especially, of course, the more responsibilities you get in life, and especially when you have kids, it is sometimes, I think that this is challenging for people who don't have children to understand. I mean, they know it in their heads, but I think to truly get it, it's hard when you don't have kids, the challenges that come with your schedule when it comes to that, and the things that you have to change, that you no longer have the flexibility or freedom to just do something, at the drop of a hat. But it is hard. And so, there is, when I was thinking about this, I was also thinking about, the social ramifications of being a mobile society. And you mentioned, your family doesn't live close. And we talk about, the downfall of society, and people are all like, oh, the nuclear family, is falling apart. And I'm like, no, it's the extended family. That's that's where we're losing, because you feel that when you don't have that support. And I will tell you, that's one of, I don't know. I have had that extended family support around me, and I don't know what I would have done without that. And granted, I don't have a large extended family where I'm at locally, but I do have my parents nearby, and that is that's everything. Or if you have, siblings or people who can step in and help you when you need it. So the challenge, I think, for us now is, how do we create those closer knit communities to us? And especially, you talked about this before, if you don't have a church community per se, then where do you make those connections with people? So I think the places people make those connections are in their social circles, our church, as far as a support community. But also places like, you meet people, like if your child goes to a school, but that doesn't help people, up until school age, because you don't have those connections. So I think that you're right. That's the challenge, is how do you make friends, not just so you've got babysitters, right? You don't want to talk babysitters, but also so that you have that. Adults need that emotional support as well, and people to, relate to, and because your spouse honestly shouldn't be your entire world. That's not healthy.
It's true.
Either.
Yeah, I miss my friends. I've so many of my closest friends that I made were when I was living on the East Coast. So they're out in Virginia, or some of them are in New York. I called an old buddy of mine from college last night, and he lives down in Springfield, and we get to see each other every once in a while. I think you might have met Luke, but it's kind of like trying to sync up our schedules to see each other is so difficult, and it just most of the time it doesn't work out, right? The people that you were so close to, you just don't have the opportunity. And it's kind of like that song, "Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoon, Little Boy Blue and the Man, and when are you coming home, son? I don't know when. We'll be together again, son. We'll get it to we'll have a good time then." And life kind of passes you by while you're doing other things. So, it's sad that the sense of community that we really used to enjoy doesn't quite exist so much anymore. A lot of it has to do with what's happening with people being on their mobile phones, right? This sort of empty social connection that has replaced a full social connection. I like nostalgia, so I'll sometimes watch reels or shorts where they show us what our life was like back in the 80s and 90s, when you would ride a bicycle over to a friend's house and everybody would leave their bikes in the front yard, and you would just run it. You would just not even knock, just open somebody's front door and then walk in and say hello to their mom and go downstairs and hang out. But that culture doesn't quite exist as much anymore, and it's been replaced with something that I don't really think meets the same level of emotional support that we used to get from each other. Even boys, right? Especially boys, because we already have trouble communicating how we feel about things anyway. And listen, a boy is going to have a hard time talking about how they feel about things, or a man is going to have a hard time talking in person about those things anyway. But they're not going to do it online, right? Unless they're desperate and extremely anonymous. A man is not going to go and seek out emotional support from other men or from anyone online, unless it's like a therapist situation or what have you. So like if you're not even having any kind of in-person thing, like getting together with the boys and the brews on like Super Bowl is pretty much it these days when it comes to social interaction. But they're not really, I mean, sometimes they're bonding, but for the most part, it's really about kind of like being distracted by the thing that you would have been distracted at home versus like what we like to do with our local friends is play board games, like have a board game night and stuff and do things like that together. And that is usually much better because you're actually looking each other in the face. Anyways, don't want to go all over this for hours and hours. Camellia, I know you're in Minnesota and you're in a bathroom, so I do want to get you out of here in a reasonable time. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we let you go?
No, I would just say that on the issue of friendship, I think one of the things that we have to do is just intentionality. We have to be more intentional about things. And is just like, you talked about talking to your friend on the phone last night. And then sometimes that, because we can think, oh, my friend whom I love dearly, knows that I'm thinking about them and I love them. But, sometimes we go for days, weeks without talking to someone. That doesn't mean that we are less their friends, but it makes a huge difference just to reach out with just a text, say, hey, I'm thinking about you, or, just, it could be anything meaningless, send them cat reels, whatever. But that intentionality, I think, makes the difference, because there are, we are so separated. Like, my friend circle is not local to me. My friend circle is all over the state and all over the country, which means I don't get to see them in person very much. And I think that requires intentionality on my part to stay connected to them and also to make that time to connect with them in person. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys in person this weekend.
Yes, we're going to have a friend group and family group this weekend in the baby shower. So I'll see you there, Camellia.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks. You can follow her over on x.com at Rare Camellia. That's Rare, R-A-R-E, Camellia. Yeah, I see my buddy Stephen Rue from high school is over there in the chat. What's up, Stephen? Remember hanging out around Silver Lake? Yeah, Stephen Rue used to live in Silver Lake. And then I think like 4 or 5 houses down, but on the same street, was our other buddy, Phil Harper. And, they've all got kids now, and their kids are like 14 years old and all that kind of stuff. And I'm I'm like behind them. And like Phil was our good buddy, was like a little bit younger than me. So I'm going to be an old dad. But there was something about those times. I would remember going into Stephen Rue's house and, saying hello to his mother. I called her Mama Rue. And Stephen would be playing the piano and singing Billy Joel, right? And it wasn't even just like the Piano Man songs. He would be singing like the good Billy Joel stuff. And then Phil Harper would come in, and we called ourselves SAP, Bic Sap. We were like the 3 amigos, but we called ourselves SAP, Stephen, Austin, Phil. And then because we sang so many Christian songs together, because we were good little Christian boys, we called ourselves Bic Sap, B-I-C-S-A-P, because I don't think we didn't all go to the same church, but we did sing a lot of hymns and like, barbershop quartet kind of stuff together and things like that. Negro spirituals, Los Negros. And we called ourselves Bic because we were brothers in Christ. Bic Sap. But those were good days. I remember Steven's little brother, I think, had Nick. I think he had like night terrors at one point or something like that. I would spend the night over at Steven's house, and his like little brother, I think, had night terrors when they were growing up. Yeah, Steven's got a 17-year-old. Oh my God. Nicely done, Steven. You got that out of the way. Except brothers in Christ, Stephen, Austin, Phil. And when they lived in Silver Lake in Raymore, Missouri, we would hang out over there in Silver Lake, and I would ride my rollerblades, because since I lived on a farm, we didn't have any concrete on the farm. So if I had rollerblades or a bicycle, you had to like ride your bike either on the grass or in the rocks. So it wasn't that fun. So, I'd try and bring my bicycle or rollerblades up to Raymore. Hang out with him and Phil and Kara Taylor, and we would all, and Julie, can't remember Julie's last name, forget her name, but the life and times of the brothers in Christ, Stephen, Austin, Phil, in the early to mid 90s were very good times. And of course, when I had like the family tragedy when my mother passed away in 1997, like having those close relationships and friendships really helped me get through that difficult time in my life as I transitioned from being a boy into a man. There's nothing that'll make you grow up faster than the loss of a parent at such a young age. So good conversations and good times. And certainly, I really feel bad for the younger generation now because yes, hold on. Looks like Angela McArdle, who I thought was not going to be on the show today, is actually going to be on the show today because I thought that she was taking a week off. Looks like she's going to be on here. Now Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian National Committee, is going to be on the show to respond to Colorado refusing to place their own presidential candidate on the ballot. It's going to be awesome. Thank God. I didn't think she was going to be on this week because she said she was out or something. So I guess she's here. We'll be right back with Angela McArdle when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Awesome. This will be great. Good stuff.
Wake Up America show bonus content looks at political concepts that changed the world. Today, we look at one of the greatest legacies of the Reagan era, the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve illustrates how tax rates influence the total tax revenue collected by governments, sparking political debates. Economist Arthur Laffer introduced the Laffer curve in 1974, showing the relationship between tax rates and revenue. It's used to argue that lowering tax rates can boost total tax revenue. Laffer's analysis, a bell curve, suggests that neither 0% nor 100% tax rates generate maximum revenue. It implies an optimal tax rate exists between these extremes. Laffer argued tax cuts have arithmetic and economic effects, immediate revenue reduction and longer-term economic stimulus by boosting taxpayer income and spending. The arithmetic effect directly reduces government revenue by the tax cut amount, while the economic effect creates a multiplier effect, increasing business activity and employment. A graph of the Laffer curve shows an optimal tax rate, T*, where tax revenue is maximized. Deviating from T* in either direction decreases revenue. The curve posits that higher tax rates don't always mean higher revenue. At 100% tax, workers lack incentive, reducing overall earnings and thus tax revenue. Laffer's theory suggests an ideal tax rate between 0% and 100%. But pinpointing this rate is contentious and varies by country and circumstances. In 1974, Laffer presented his theory to President Ford's staff, challenging the belief that higher tax rates always increase revenue, highlighting potential negative economic impacts. Laffer's ideas shaped Reaganomics in the 1980s, leading to significant tax cuts. Despite these cuts, federal tax revenue grew from $517 billion in 1980 to $909 billion in 1988. Under Reaganomics, marginal tax rates fell, boosting tax revenue, reducing inflation, and lowering unemployment, exemplifying Laffer's theory and practice. Tax policy debates persist, with Republicans favoring lower taxes for businesses and high earners to spur job creation, while Democrats advocate for wealth redistribution through higher taxes on the wealthy. Republicans and Democrats both aim for Laffer curve efficiency, but with differing approaches. Republicans seek minimal government interference, while Democrats emphasize government programs. Critics cite 4 issues with the Laffer curve: its simplistic single tax rate, variability in the ideal tax rate, assumption of tax cuts for the wealthy, and assumptions about individual and business behavior. The curve's simplicity overlooks tax system complexities and does not account for factors like economic conditions, tax loopholes, and underground economies affecting tax cut efficacy. Laffer's trickle-down economics theory, where tax cuts boost overall growth, was previously seen in policies from Presidents Hoover and Reagan, focusing on benefits for corporations and the wealthy. The Laffer curve lacks specific tax rates and revenue predictions, leaving policymakers to estimate effective rates, making it a contentious yet influential economic tool. Ultimately, the Laffer curve suggests that cutting tax rates can increase revenue, but assumes a single tax rate and predictable behavior, necessitating careful consideration in policymaking.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Austin Peterson here. Glad to have you on the show. It's time to rise and freedom. All right. Well, there was a little bit of confusion because I didn't know that we were going to be able to get the chair of the Libertarian Party. She's a very, very hot, very highly sought after guest. Well, now she is a Wake Up America show regular. Tuesdays at 8:30 a.m. Central Time. You can catch up on all the drama in the Liberty sphere. Angela McCardle, who is queen of the drama. No, just kidding. Joining us live right now. Good morning, Angela. Glad to have you here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
There is drama in the libertarian movement, bigger than usual, Angela. There's always drama, but today we get the news that the Libertarian Party of Colorado has announced that they will not place your elected Libertarian Party presidential candidate, Chase Oliver, on the ballot in Colorado. Your reaction?
This is the second state affiliate, actually, who's made such a claim. Montana had the same reaction. I'm not entirely surprised. The reaction against the Chase Tremont campaign was quite visceral right after the convention. I think we're still seeing the fallout of it. It puts me in a difficult position because as the national party chair, my job is to support our national candidate, whether I like it or not, whether I'm excited, whether it's going to create conflict with the state affiliates. So, I think we're just at a point where we've got to work through these existential growing pains. Like, we have to do it. So that's what I'm going to be doing the next 3 weeks or so, trying to see if we can come to some sort of consensus, avoiding disaffiliations, avoiding lawsuits, doing everything I can to just work this situation out.
Is this unprecedented, Angela? Because I've never seen anything like this before.
It's actually not unprecedented. The same thing happened in the state of Arizona. I think it was the year 2000. It's been a while. Rhode Island definitely issued a statement against Bill Weld, but he was not removed from their ballot. So there've been kerfuffles over the last, few terms, but it looks like it's a little more intense this time.
Do you agree with Colorado's decision to do this?
Well, I can't agree with it. It's really more, what am I going to do about it? By default, I can't agree with it. I'm sympathetic to their complaints. Montana in particular, they had a statement. I think they flew under the radar a little bit more because they don't have the bombastic social media presence that LPCO has. But they were talking about the candidacy basically just like being painful for them as a super red state, and needing to do what is best for their affiliate and also their down ticket candidates. So Colorado is a little different. They're a blue state. They're not as blue as like Massachusetts or something horrendous like that. But they have gone blue over the last couple of decades, probably because of California's stinking up their own state and then moving over to Colorado. And they're probably trying to make a splash. They're known for wheeling and dealing with the GOP, really trying to flex as much strategy as possible. So I'm sure that that's probably what they're trying to do here. And I'll be reaching out to them today and tomorrow to see kind of what's going on.
What powers do you have that you could potentially exercise over Colorado for good or ill?
Well, I don't think that I have a lot of authority when it comes to their Secretary of State and who actually goes on the ballot. And I guess we'll find that out, right? And I think also, how much do I want to flex and lord my authority over state affiliates? That's a whole nother question too. And I don't know. It's gonna be fun to navigate.
Did they give you any indication that something like this was coming down the pike, or was this a total shock to you?
Multiple states have given me an indication that this is coming down the pipeline. However, most of those states have realized that they're bound by their bylaws and they can't actually proceed with it. Lots of people were upset. But then, like a little bit of time passes, you realize it's going to create challenges for you with your delegate allocation to the next national convention, that your bylaws say you have to put them on, that you could be subject to some judicial committee appeal problems. And usually, like people have just sort of resigned their fate, let it go, or they've come on board with, my strategy, especially if they're in blue states, saying, what, we're going to go hard for him. It will just make it into a little bit of a clown show, but we'll get through it.
Are any of the states that have indicated to you that they would like to follow in Colorado's footsteps: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, or Nevada?
Swing states you ask about.
Yes, it's a silly shirt show, but serious coverage.
Right. There have been rumblings, but I don't have anything, finalized. No serious threats in those states yet, but there have been rumblings.
When you say that the reaction to the party's candidate after the convention, these kinds of things from the Libertarian Party, what about like outside groups? What has been the reaction to Chase Oliver? I mean, have there been any positive inclinations
Yes,
yeah?
absolutely.
So what's been the bright side since Chase Oliver took the nomination?
Progressive groups love him. Progressive groups love him. And you can say that tongue in cheek, or you could say that also that it's legitimately good news. If progressives are going to peel away from their really bad economics and they're no longer embracing mask mandates, even if they're not taking a strong stance on it, right? And they're no longer embracing vaccine mandates and that sort of stuff, I think that's great. So if Chase can peel those people away from their desire to be authoritarian and lord their progressive values over everyone else, I think that's fantastic. And, I want to support him doing that.
What do you think is, the sort of most realistic outcome of this election for you in terms of a best case scenario? In 2016, the LP hit their high water mark 3%. Joe Jorgensen, I believe, was 1.5. I mean, what do you really think is like the best case scenario for the LP considering all of these challenges that you face in November?
I don't think that we're going to have a high turnout at the polls, and I don't think that's Chase Oliver's fault. It's because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in the race, and he's the dark horse candidate and a darling of the ballot access battle. We're going to get passed over by him most likely for a lot of independent protest votes. If Chase comes in aggressively and really pushes his anti-war position and talks about the conflicts between Israel and Gaza, he's going to peel off a lot of progressive votes, and he's going to peel off some independents who don't like Kennedy's support Israel at all costs position. So if he pushes that really hard and his team does a really good job of outreach, then I think that percentage is going to go up, but we're definitely not going to pass Joe Jorgensen's numbers. It's going to be a struggle to get, I think, 1%.
I think, Angela, the reason why it's so easy to have such respect for you is because you're so honest about the situation that the LP is in. Too many times I've watched libertarians play the role of Baghdad Bob when it came to elections. Everything's fine, nothing's happening, or it's Frank Drebin Police Squad, where he's like, go home, there's nothing to see here, and everything's exploding in the background and the fireworks, right? But I appreciate that you're taking a realistic approach to this. So what can you reveal to me about the strategy that you have in place, considering the challenges that you have going forward to election? What are you really going to try and focus on doing between now and November?
Sure. Supporting Chase Oliver and the Mike Tremont campaign, especially in blue states or states that lean blue. That is where we make a splash. That's where we're going to get higher vote totals. That's where maybe potentially with ballot access, we're going to do better. Pushing very hard. Continuing to push the Trump campaign to free Ross Ulbricht, to free Julian Assange as well, and to put a libertarian in the cabinet and trying to make that a better campaign. We've got sort of two separate campaigns going right now, right? Go hard in the paint for Chase Oliver, really support him. Join the LP, even if you don't like Chase Oliver. Do it because we're the most powerful voting bloc in the country, and we're pushing the Trump campaign in a better direction.
How much is RFK Jr. playing into the Libertarian Party strategy? What role is he playing in terms of like competition for like more liberty style votes, would you say?
Oh, I mean, I think he's playing a significant role. It's not necessarily a lot of libertarian, like hardcore libertarian voters that he's pulling, although he is pulling some, especially people who were aggrieved over Operation Warp Speed and saying, I'm not voting for Donald Trump until he shifts his stance on all of that stuff. But it's mostly that he's taking the independent vote and the protest vote. People who are not particularly political, they don't like either major party, they don't have TDS, right? Like they don't really care about that, but that's just not how they base their, like, they're people who kind of decide on a whim at the last minute how to vote, which sounds super weird to anybody who's very engaged in politics, but there are millions of people like that who just go, maybe this guy at the last minute. He's going to suck up a lot of those votes.
How many states do you expect the Libertarian Party to be able to get on the ballot for?
I think probably 48. And, New York is the one that's going to be a challenge. We're probably going to have legal issues with it, like right down to the wire. They've finished their petitioning, and, we're currently squabbling over whether or not our numbers are sufficient. Illinois is also a very difficult, expensive state. I believe we've got to have 35,000 signatures in the state of Illinois. So New York and Illinois are the difficult ones.
Do you think that you could understand why people who are self-identified small L libertarians this year would either sit it out or vote for Donald Trump?
Well, yeah. Every 4 years, we hear the same like zombie-like chorus of people say it's the most important election of our lifetime. It's not, except this year, there is a little bit more at stake because Democrats have weaponized the justice system against Donald Trump. And it's something that's been toyed with and talked about in the past 2 election cycles. Donald Trump talked about locking Hillary up. Hillary Clinton, there was Russiagate, there was all of this stuff. Like, it's always been discussed, but this time it's actually happening. And I think people are rightfully concerned that we're never going to have fair elections because whoever's in a position of power is just going to lord that authority over someone else, dig up something they did that was illegal, slap a felony charge on it, and lock them up. It's a concern.
Does the Libertarian Party have anyone that you could name off the top of their head that you think could actually survive a confirmation hearing in the Senate in order to take a position in the cabinet of Donald Trump? I mean, Big L Libertarian Party members who could, one, be selected, and then 2, pass the confirmation hearings, and then 3, potentially even do a decent job as a libertarian running an institution that they want to destroy. Is there anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I want to poison the well by saying their names out loud, but I've been going through a list. So if you look at organizations, Mises Institute, Libertarian, Justice Center, those sort of places, then you find people who I think are of the caliber that could withstand all of that pressure.
Larry Sharp?
Sure, Larry Sharp. Yeah.
He was a U.S. Marine after all, so he does have some institutional knowledge there. But I think, the challenge
and business
is
background.
Yeah, and the challenge is that when it comes to libertarians, because we eschew the institutions, if you're going, you have to have, like you've explained in the past, like you're a lawyer, right? You have experience running a law firm. You need that kind of institutional knowledge and understanding of management to be able to accomplish, the head of the ATF, because, you're going to want to abolish the ATF if you're the head of it, obviously, but that's not under your constitutional purview. That's the president's decision and the Congress's decision. So if a Libertarian Party member becomes the head of the ATF, can they cause a lot of damage for good? Sure. But they probably better at least know how to run a team or manage a team, right?
Yes. So, there's a couple of qualities I think that these people would need to fit. You need to know how to downsize. Anybody who has navigated a business that was liquidated or dramatically downsized, gone through like a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, something like that, those are very helpful skills. Can you take something that's huge and strip it down and have it barely technically running? And then the other one is management experience. So we have a lot of talking heads in the Libertarian Party and the broader liberty movement, right? But that is not the skill we need. We need someone who can deal with the administrative bloat and also make it out, like you're going to be under an incredible amount of pressure. Like, this is just totally, like, this is way beyond fighting with libertarians on the internet. This is deep state pressures. You've got to be able to have a really thick skin and a strong backbone to be successful in this.
Okay. Well, maybe next week, Angela, I might be able to peel a name or two out of you so I can have a really good article that I can write after it. But I love that you're joining us now for the show Tuesdays at 8:30 a.m. Central on the regular time. It's going to keep people abreast of these situations as they run, because obviously most of my audience are libertarians, and they like you, Angela, and I've got lots of great feedback on the fact that you're going to be a regular guest now. Because I think especially when you see what's happening with the Libertarian Party of Colorado and Montana, somebody's got to come out there and talk about what's going on. So I'm glad we have your take on it. Is there anything else that you think we might have missed, or something important that you'd like to share with our listeners or plug before we let you go today?
I think every couple of weeks we're going to have a new bombastic, interesting incident to discuss. So, stay tuned, continue to check us out at lp.org, and I will try to continue to deliver some crazy stuff for you up until the election.
There we go. They are the party of afuera, the Libertarian Party of the United States. Angela McArdle is their Javier Milei. Thank you, Angela. We appreciate you very much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday. Give her a round of applause. What say you? There you go. Every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, you're going to hear from Angela McArdle on the show. Boy, that worked out perfectly, because I didn't know that she was going to be able to make it today, because we had a little bit of confusion. But now it worked out. I had the other guest. He canceled. Angela McArdle's like, hey, I'm ready to go. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. Everything worked out perfectly. You know how lucky AP is. I'm so lucky. Aren't I cute? My little baby's cute too. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by viewers and listeners like you, and Javier Milei, who just retweeted me over on x.com. Nice. Sweet. You love getting those Javier Milei retweets. They really do help a lot to grow my X account over there. Appreciate all of our viewers and listeners helping to support the Wake Up America show. We also appreciate Rumble. Their new studio is just fantastic, helping us to grow the Wake Up America show with their injections of live reads. That's why you should make sure and download the Rumble app. Once you download it, you should search for my channel, AP for Liberty, and follow my channel directly on the app. That's going to make sure that you get a notification every time we go live. So you want to click the link in the description, or that's pinned now in the live chat, to download the Rumble app on your phone. It's totally free. Or if you prefer to watch us on like a big screen, for example, then it's also available for Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, Roku, LG, and Samsung TVs. All you need to do is search for Rumble. There you go. Download that Rumble app on any of those devices, and make sure you follow me. That way you'll get those notifications when we go live. We appreciate you, Rumble.com and Rumble Studio, for helping us to grow the Wake Up America show. Make sure you click that like button and follow before you leave, so we can see you right here again tomorrow. Judge Napolitano's on. We love Big Brain Wednesdays, and we'll see you here on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Exit through the Griff Shop, APforLibertyShop.com. We'll see you tomorrow.
Expanse of time, a year might seem like a mere moment, but oh, what a year it's been. In September 2022, Austin and Stephanie Peterson embarked on a journey to wake up America. They began humbly, with just 20 souls tuning in, learning, listening, and though challenges arose, like the looming shadow of YouTube demonetization, their spirit never waned. And now, thanks to you, thousands rise with the sun to join them, to listen, to engage, to be a part of a community. So here's to you, and to Wake Up America, for memories shared, for friends made, for the journey ahead, and for never, ever forgetting to rise and freedom. Happy anniversary.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Is the outdoor of your home about as exciting as a library? Then spice it up and unbore your space with our custom metal signs. Crafted with love and a bit of libertarian magic, you can customize your own metal sign at apforlibertyshop.com. So head to apforlibertyshop.com, customize your own metal sign today.
Welcome to a world of vocal discovery at Peterson Voice Studio. I'm Justin Peterson, here to guide your musical journey. Envision a place where your voice reaches new heights, where every note tells a story. We embrace all singers, from the enthusiastic shower vocalists to aspiring stars, ensuring each voice finds its unique rhythm and tone. Are you ready to elevate your voice? Visit petersonvoicestudio.com and sign up for remote lessons tailored just for you. Let's begin this melodious journey together.
Tired of spending your hard-earned money on woke corporations that don't share your pro-freedom values? Fed up with sipping liberal lattes and progressive cappuccinos? Introducing Founding Flavors from AP for Liberty Shop. Get your day started with Washington's Revolutionary Roast. As robust and principled as the man himself, this blend is the shot of energy heard round the world. Or maybe you want to taste the fervor of freedom with Adams's Patriotic Perk. It's as dynamic and balanced as the U.S. Constitution, sure to awaken your spirit of liberty. For the aficionados, we've got the Jeffersonian Java, a complex mix of flavors that speaks volumes about your refined tastes. And don't forget Betsy's Liberty Lullaby, our decaf option, crafted with the same care and dedication Betsy Ross put into our Star-Spangled Banner. This blend lets you enjoy the taste of freedom anytime without losing sleep. No woke beans here, folks. Just pure, patriotic, pro-freedom flavors brewed with love for liberty. So why compromise your principles for a cup of coffee? Stand up for your values, perk up your patriotism, and start your day the American way. Get your Founding Flavors at apforlibertyshop.com.